as people are still signing in here, I definitely want to start today by talking about a little review here of completing the square. Because when I was looking at the homework over the last 2 days for section 4-6, day 1 and 2, some of you had not completed those assignments. Remember, homework is 20% of your grade, and it helps you know what you're doing for the test. So, also remember that we have trimmed down these assignments to just the bare needs, enough to get you to remember it, not enough to make you feel like you're doing too much. So I want to start today by having you just find a little piece of scratch paper, or maybe there's some room in your note packet still somewhere for 4-6, because 4-6 was completing the square. And I want to put you in some breakout rooms, and that was the reason that I have a separate code today for 3rd, 4th, and 5th hour, because the breakout room works really well if you only use one group of students at a time. But if you have, like I had 3 sections of Algebra 2, it kind of scrambles everybody together. So write this one down somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and give you a breakout room, and then, yeah, I'll eavesdrop on you and see if we can remember how do we solve that by completing the square. All right, looks good. Should be groups of 3s and 4s.
So first you have to add off the x.
What are we doing?
Solving for negative x squared equals 4x plus 3.
Okay.
Hi, Amos.
Am I here early?
No, you're late. I'm going to put you in one of the breakout rooms. We're working on this review problem right here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and it won't let me scoot you down. There you
I
go.
thought we had at 10 o'clock, that's why.
55. Jackson, same thing with you. I'm going to put you in a breakout room. We're working on this review problem right now. How are you folks doing? Are you done already? Ashley, Jaden, and Haley, did you finish this already?
I'm done.
Okay. All right. So when I started to go into the breakout rooms after a bit and it was all quiet, there were some people that were already finished with this one. And again, really important that you're doing the homework. I want to remind you how to do these so that when you get to that point, you're like, oh yeah, this wasn't as tough as it seems. So the first thing we would do is we would move the negative x squared over by adding it. And then we would realize positive 3 back there, that's not a perfect square. That's not going to help us with completing the square. So we'll move it over by subtracting it. And this is where you have to remember that cute little itsy bitsy formula so that you know how to find that number. So can somebody unmute, please, and tell me what that cutesy little formula is? B over 2 squared, it is. So we have to remember it's ax squared plus bx. So our b is a 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 squared is 4. So we have to add 4 to both sides of that equation, because what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And then negative 3 plus 4 is 1. And by completing that square that we just did, we made a perfect square trinomial. And you square x to get x squared, and we had to square 2 to get the 4. And this is a plus in the middle, so it looks like this. And now the reason we liked these was because then we could just take the square root of both sides. And plus or minus the square root of 1 equals x plus 2. We realize, oh, the square root of 1, that's just 1. And then to get x by itself, we would subtract 2 from both sides. And this one we can actually find both answers, because our answers are negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1, and negative 2 minus 1, which is negative 3. And we have it. So those of you that took Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, you have a little catching up to do. Need to see that homework from 4-6. That's going to be on our test a week from today. So don't forget about that. Now, today, we're going to talk about the quadratic formula again, but just a piece of it. So hopefully, you've been singing that little annoying song in your head, right? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Today is all about this portion in the orange up here, b squared minus 4ac. And that's called the discriminant. So, root word of discriminant is discriminate, which we all know is bad. But in math, discriminate doesn't mean the same thing. It means tell the difference between stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be able to tell how many answers are we going to get and what kind of answers will they be, because, well, it's math and it's all about the numbers. So discriminants and solutions of quadratic equations. We've got the value of the discriminant, how many solutions and what type, and then we have a graph to go with it. So if we graph something, a parabola, and it crosses in two spots, that's because it had two real solutions. So b squared minus 4ac comes out to be positive because it was greater than 0. And if that happens, we get two real solutions. So if it comes out to be positive, we get two real solutions. Now that works out great if we're talking about real world problems because we want real solutions. And this next one does too. But this is unique because these parabolas just hit the x-axis and bounce off. That's called a tangent, when it hits and bounces off. So they really only get one real 0. So how would we know that? Because we're going to do b squared minus 4ac, and it's going to come out to be 0. And that means we only get one real solution, but at least we still get one. So if it comes out positive or it comes out to be 0, we're like, this is good. I either get two solutions because it's positive, or I get one solution because it came out to be 0. Then there's the other case. The other case is when you look at these two parabolas and you see that is never going to cross the x-axis. So if it's never going to cross the x-axis, well, that's because your discriminant came out to be negative, and we can't take the square root of a negative yet. Tomorrow we'll start talking about taking the square root of a negative. So we would write down it has no real solutions. But there's better news. It doesn't have any real solutions. It has two imaginary solutions. So what this tells me is if I do b squared minus 4ac and it comes out to be negative, that's something that can't happen in the real world because it's negative and you can't take the square root of a negative. But when we get to section 4.8, we will actually be finding imaginary solutions. Today, we just write down no real solutions. It can't happen. And it turns out even imaginary solutions, they're just that. They're imaginary. They can't happen in the real world. So we're looking at just b squared minus 4ac. If it's positive, we get two real solutions. If it's 0, we get one real solution. If it's negative, we get no real solutions, but we do get two imaginaries. So is that all we're going to do today? Yeah, I mean, we're going to check how many solutions does it have and what type. So the numbers about how many are 2, 1, and 0, and then the type is either real, real, or non-real, imaginary. So here we go. Using the discriminant, find the discriminant, determine the number of real solutions. Okay, so I have negative 2x squared minus 3x equals negative 5, and just like yesterday, we know it has to have a 0 on one side, so we'd have to add 5. Because that's the only way we can see this in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then we figure out, well, what's a, what's b, and what's c, and that's not real hard. Negative 2, negative 3, and 5. But because I only need to know how many and what type, I don't have to do the whole quadratic formula. I just have to do b squared minus 4ac. Negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 5. Now notice how I used parentheses for the negative numbers there. I didn't use it for the subtraction. I used it for the negative numbers. So you could, if you don't want to do this in your head, just punch it in, parentheses and all, and it'll give you the right answer. I'm going to go ahead and do this with a little brain power. So order of operations says do exponents first. This will be negative 3 times negative 3 because it's negative 3 squared, which is 9. Negative 4 times negative 2, that's 8. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 plus 40 is 49. Now I can answer the question. So I think, is that positive? Is it 0 or is it negative? Well, it's positive. And if it's positive, you get 2 real solutions. So it really is as basic as that. It's just using the b squared minus 4ac. If it comes out positive, you get 2 real solutions. If it comes out to 0, you get 1 real solution. If it comes out negative, you get no real solutions. In 4-8, we'll get imaginaries. Alrighty. So this one says, let's find the discriminants so we can tell them the number of real solutions. We'll also tell them what type while we're at it. Hey, look at this one's all set up for us. So somebody please unmute and give me A, B, and C for this one. Thank you. And then I remember, I just need the b squared minus 4ac. Don't need the whole quadratic formula. And then I just substitute my numbers in. So negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7. Do it in your head, or using parentheses, just punch it into your calculator. Negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 minus, or negative 8 times 7, I was just going to say minus 7. Negative 8 times 7 is negative 56. 9 minus 56, negative 47. So, I got something that's negative. Please unmute and tell me what that means. It is. In today's answer key, you're probably just going to see no real solutions, but it is 2 imaginaries. And like I said, you can do that either way. I think on the test this is probably a multiple choice one or something. So you'll know it when you see it. You'll either see no real solutions or 2 imaginaries. Alrighty, take a peek at B. I get the feeling we have to do something to this one before we can get going. Can somebody unmute and tell me what we need to do?
Subtract off the x squared.
Now there's probably somebody out there saying, Cedar Home, I would have moved the 6x and the 5 over because I like to keep that x squared positive. It'll work either way. It doesn't make any difference. So as long as you're careful, you'll get it right. Now I need somebody to give me A, B, and C, please. So let's put it into b squared minus 4ac. Do a little math. 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times negative 1 is 4, and 4 times 5 is 20, so plus 20. And we get 56. So somebody please unmute and tell me what that means. Two real solutions. Okay, Cedar Home, this seems kind of silly. I mean, all we're doing is saying how many and what kind. Except This will let us know if a real world situation is actually possible. Because if we do the discriminant for a real world situation and we get a negative, we're going to know, well, you can't do that. That's not real. It's not going to happen. And that is what we have to do next. So you hit a golf ball into the air from a height 1 inch above the ground with an initial vertical velocity of 85 feet per second. The function h equals negative 16t squared plus 85t plus 1/12 models the height in feet of the ball at time t in seconds. Will the ball reach a height of 115 feet? I already saw something interesting. Did anybody catch this? There's a fraction in there for c. 1/12. Where on earth did that come from in this problem? If you can see it, please unmute and let everybody know where that 1/12 came from amongst all those words.
The height of 1 inch above the ground.
There it is. Notice everything else is in feet. We need everything in feet. So 1 inch would be 1/12 of a foot. Yuck, 1/12 in there. Well, we have some work to do anyway, because we want to know when the ball is going to reach 115 feet. So, is 115 a height or is it a time? Because those are our only choices in this equation. What should 115 go in for? Now notice, it didn't say when will the ball reach. It's asking us, will it reach a height of 115? So this isn't ready to go. There's something we have to do with this before we can put it into b squared minus 4ac. What do we have to do?
Subtract all.
We do. We'll get another little fraction over there. And since these are bigger numbers, we might just want to plop that in the calculator and let the calculator tell us. But we could always change it to negative 114 and 11/12. But that's going to be kind of awkward to work with. So on the calculator, parentheses 1 divided by 12, parentheses, minus 115, and then hit math, number 1, fraction conversion, and enter. Yeah, that's not a very nice number. Negative 1,379/12. So we'll probably be using a calculator for this one. Because our A is negative 16, our B is 85, and our C is negative 1,379/12. So let's see how bad that's going to look. B squared minus 4AC will be 85 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 1,379/12. Yikes. Calculator time. Again, punch it in exactly as I had it with the parentheses and you'll be safe every time. So there's our 85 squared minus 4. And then we had negative 16. And then our negative 1,379/12. So negative 129.666, which is negative 129 2/3. But we'll write down negative 129.67. And sometimes we feel like we're done because it's like, well, we did all the math, but we didn't answer the question yet. What does does a negative discriminant mean?
No resolutions.
Exactly. So this is never going to happen because this is not a real solution. No real solutions. So our answer to the question is no. So we went through and did the discriminant just to be able to tell them, not going to happen. You know, if you've got this equation and you hit that ball 115 feet, will it reach that 115 feet? The answer is no. Isn't going to happen. So now the got it says, how about if we change it to 110? They couldn't make it to 115, but how about if we change it to 110? So now it'll be 110 equals negative 16t squared plus 85t plus 1/12. And I'm going to put you back in breakout rooms. I want to remind everybody, Rapid Identity has the graphing calculator app in there. Find the discriminant and then tell us whether or not this can happen or not. It's very quiet here. Please help each other out, especially if somebody doesn't have a graphing calculator. Very quiet here. Please help each other out, especially if somebody doesn't have a graphing calculator. Even if you just have to, talk them through going into Rapid Identity for it. Brenna, Nevaeh, and Jordan, are you all done?
Still working on it.
Okay, so that's why there's no talking. You're working on it. All right. Ashley and Haley, is it going okay?
Yeah,
Just still doing the math?
the very end.
Okay, good. All is quiet here, guys. Are you done? Or do you need just a little more time?
I finished it.
You're done? Okay.
Yep.
So looks like I'm getting everybody back now. Can somebody please unmute and tell us what that nasty number was that you got for b squared minus 4ac? Yeah, 0.333 forever. Okay. So now I need somebody to tell me whether or not, well, actually, let's talk first about how many solutions and what type, if it's 190.3. Two real solutions. So is it going to reach 110 feet? Twice. Twice, in fact. So this is a yes. So let me show you what happened. So 110 feet was right here. And from looking at what we did in the first word problem, we know it didn't make it to 115. So it must have just crossed up there at 110 and never made it to 115 feet. So that's what we're seeing when they're asking us, does it have solutions? Well, it hit 110 feet. In fact, it hit twice. So yes, it made it. Now, if we wanted to know where those spots were, we could continue on and use the rest of the quadratic formula to find those. But today is just about, hey, can I find this or can't I find this? So if we get two real solutions or we get one real solution, then we can say, yes, this actually happened. But if we get a negative, that tells us no real solutions. Can't do it. All right. That is all we had to do today. So there is 4-7 day 2 assignment down there at the bottom. 25 to 37 the odd, 38, 41 to 55 the odd, and then some review problems, 85 to 90. So the review in there, we're going to have a test next Tuesday, week from today. So I went over that completing the square with you today because I wanted to make sure that everybody's able to finish up the homework and get that stuff in. That homework is so important for putting this into your long-term memory. This is not a long assignment. So again, you're welcome to stay, ask questions. Doesn't have to be on today's stuff. Could be an older assignment that you need some help with. You could also go off and work for a little while and then pop back on if you have a question. Whatever works better for you.